Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. If you were missing me last week, it's just because I did not have the foresight to record before I went on a trip with my husband for our 10-year wedding anniversary and my birthday. I turned 31. We went on a trip to Mexico, and as you know, my episodes come out Mondays at 6 a.m. and we left Wednesday at we had to leave the house at 4 a.m. for our flight, and we didn't get back until Sunday at 10 p.m. So if I wanted to record for last week, I would have had to have the foresight to record on Tuesday, and I just didn't think to do that. So that was the only opportunity really to record. And so I just let it go for last week. So sorry if you were missing me. If you were missing me, I am sad to say, but you might have to get used to that feeling, because basically this episode is a little bit of a goodbye for me. I have decided to take a step back from the podcast. I am going to talk a little bit about why in this episode, but I also am going to talk about some of the things that I've learned in the process of doing this podcast for the last 2+ years. And I hope that you'll stay along, even though I'm not going to continue recording it. I do want to be very clear that I know how to do a podcast now, and I could always come back to it if I wanted to. I could always return, and I have this skill set now that I've developed of how to record and edit and publish podcast episodes. However, I am officially deciding that I am not going to do any more podcast episodes for the time being. I say for the time being in the loosest sense of, if I ever wanted to return, I could, but I don't intend for that to happen. So I am sorry if that saddens any of you. I love hearing from you guys and talking to you about the podcast episodes whenever you reach out, but it's just something that has not felt as exciting for me, or that I've had a passion for several months now. And I'm going to talk about in this episode basically 4 lessons I feel like I've learned in this process of podcasting, just this journey of doing first the Fill Your Cups podcast and then the Rise and Energize podcast. And one of the first lessons is that there can be a lot of reasons that something feels forced, right? So I've been telling my husband, I've confided in him for the last several months that every week that I record, it just feels a little bit forced. I don't feel quite as excited. I don't feel quite as passionate. And I am someone who I know that motivation and passion are not very reliable things to partner with whenever you're trying to do something. Whenever you're trying to accomplish something, you cannot rely on motivation and passion or any of that zest. That will come sometimes. Sometimes you'll be really hyped to do the thing that you want to do, but discipline is where you're actually going to accomplish things. And so I have not taken this lightly. I have not just on a whim decided, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to quit this week or anything like that. I have been feeling for probably 3 to 4 months, just each week that I record, it's not something that I'm super excited to do. When I come up with episodes, it feels even more strained. And whenever I am done with them, it's more of a relief. And one sign for me is that I used to listen to every episode, even though I was recording them myself and I knew exactly what was going to be said on the episodes. I used to listen to them. And quite frankly, I have not been listening to podcasts in general for a while. So I think I've just lost a little bit of zest in general for the platform. But there was a period of time that I really loved podcasts, several years worth. I never really thought I'd come out of loving podcasts, and maybe I'll come back into it, who knows. But overall, I'm not really consuming this kind of content myself anymore, so it's not really exciting to me. And then on top of that, each week it's just feeling very forced. And I feel like one of the reasons that something can feel really forced is because you're just beginning. It could be because you've just started this, you're trying to create a habit. I think of when you first try to start a workout program and it feels so forced, it feels so hard if you're trying to wake up 30 minutes earlier to get a workout in or some exercise in or a walk in or whatever. It feels so forced, but it's truly just because you haven't formed that habit yet, you haven't formed that discipline yet, and it's just because you're at the beginning of it. I know that that's not the case here because I'm not beginning it. I've been doing the podcast for over 2 years now, for 1 year with my sister and then 1 year solo, almost 1 year solo. And I think it's totally okay if something feels forced at the beginning. Genuinely, podcasting at the beginning, when my sister and I started our podcast at the very beginning, it did feel forced each week because it was hard, because you're learning the skill set. You're learning something that eventually will become muscle memory. But at the beginning, it's really, really hard. And so one of the reasons that something might feel forced is just because you're beginning. And in that case, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you quit. I do think there are times when it's okay to quit something or to stop it or to pause it or take a break. And in this case, I've decided that I'm comfortable with choosing to quit this thing, but it's not because I just started. It's not because it feels forced because I'm a beginner. It's not that. Another reason I feel like something can feel forced is because maybe you're doing the right thing, but you're doing it in the wrong way. So there are lots of different types of podcasts, right? And when I started this podcast, I started with my sister. So there were two hosts. We talked about all sorts of different subjects. The length of the episodes were much longer. We sometimes had guests on. It was a much different type of show. It's a solo podcast, very personal growth minded. Before we had very broad subjects. Now it's very personal growth focused. So I've tried two very different versions of podcasting, one with co-hosting, one solo, one with guests, again, one solo, one with broad range of topics, one with a very niche, like specific kind of topic, one with long episodes, one with short episodes. And I can tell you that I don't think that the reason that I'm trying to quit is because I haven't tried the same thing, but in a different way. But like, say that in your career, you're really struggling, you're like a teacher and you just really want to quit teaching. Well, have you tried public versus private school? Have you tried first grade versus fifth grade? Have you tried a district that has 20 students in the classroom instead of 30? Have you tried? There are a lot of different things that you could try out before you decide teaching isn't for me, right? So like for me, I'm deciding I don't think that podcasting is for me, but I have tried a couple different versions of it. I don't know if that's making sense, but I'm just trying to leave you with a few little nuggets so that my last episode is still beneficial for you and still reflective for you and an opportunity for you to grow. Because I do think that sometimes things feel forced because we're a beginner. Sometimes things feel forced not because it's the wrong thing, but because it's the wrong thing, or it's the right thing in the wrong way. And then sometimes it's just the wrong thing for that season of life. So again, I'm not saying that podcasting was the wrong thing for me when I started. I'm not saying that it'll even be the wrong thing. Maybe I'll pick it up in 10 years again, who knows? But for me, podcasting is the wrong thing in this current season of life, and that's okay. So for you, if you're thinking about quitting something, or if you're thinking about something, just something that's feeling really forced, a relationship, a career, a hobby, an extracurricular, or I don't know if extracurricular makes sense, but like meetings that you're going to or activities that you're committed to, whatever it may be, if it's feeling forced, ask yourself, does it feel forced because I'm a beginner? In that case, maybe I should keep trying for a little while longer and see how it goes. Is it feeling forced because it's the right thing, but in the wrong way or like the wrong method? Maybe I could try a few different things, a few different arrangements to figure out if this is actually the right thing and I shouldn't quit it yet. Or is it time to move on to something else because this is just not the right thing for me, especially in whatever season that you're in. Hope that's helpful. That's one lesson that I've learned. I thought it made sense for that one to come first because I'm kind of also explaining to you why I'm quitting. And so I wanted to encourage you, those of you that if you are thinking about quitting something, I feel like quitting is just very discouraged in our society, or it's really looked down upon. We feel really bad when we quit something. We feel like we're failures. But I guess what I'm saying is there can be a lot of reasons to quit something, or a lot of reasons that something feels forced. And sometimes it makes more sense. It feels more aligned to quit something to make space for something new to develop, rather than continue to force that thing. The second thing that I will say is you don't know until you try. My trainer, my workout trainer, when I say trainer, it's like a digital trainer. I do digital body workouts. So I cast them, like Chromecast them to my TV, and I love it. I've been doing it for 7 years or something like that. And my trainer today, she has the cutest accent. I can't do it, I don't think. But it's like the most subtle South African accent, but it's really cute. Anyway, she today was saying you don't know till you try. And what she was talking about was sometimes we're really afraid to lift heavier weights. If we're constantly, say that for sumo squats or something, we're constantly lifting a certain weight. Like I have 40-pound dumbbell or something, but I never try to lift more than that, I never know if I can. If you never try it, you'll never know. And I feel really confidently about that with this podcasting thing. I was just telling my husband, Jared, that I feel like I would much rather be on this side of things, knowing that I'm just not lit up about podcasting. I'm just not excited about it. And I think I don't want to do it any longer. I'd rather be on this side of it, knowing that I tried it, than still being 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago thinking I should really start a podcast. I think I would really like that. And letting all this time go by and still never doing it, because I would still be sitting there thinking, I think I would be a really good podcaster. I think I would really like podcasting. I think that would really give me joy. And I think, maybe that would take off for me or whatever. You never know until you try. And it's okay if you try and then you decide, nope, not right for me. It's okay if you pick up the 50-pound dumbbell instead of the 40-pound dumbbell and you're like, actually, I can't do that. That's totally okay. Go back to the 40 or go to the 45. Like, you never really know until you try. And so I think that it's just such a good lesson for anything, that if you are if you constantly have something in the back of your brain, like, oh, maybe I should start this thing, or maybe I should do this thing. Like, you don't know until it picks up. And this is a pretty silly example as well, but I'm also thinking of the example of my book club. I talk a lot about my book club on this podcast because I love them so much. But I started it 3 years ago. When I first started it, I had no idea if anybody would come. Now, I will caveat and say that there was one other girl, her name is also Morgan, that we had kind of planned the book club together, and having a buddy in it was really helpful, because I just always find that doing something with a buddy makes the vulnerability and just you going outside of the box, I guess, or out of your comfort zone, makes it a little bit easier to do that when you have a partner or buddy or accountability person, whatever. It doesn't matter what you call them. But she said that she would go to my book club. And so I was like, okay, perfect. If it's just me and you that show up, great. And it wasn't just me and her that showed up. It was me, her, and 4 other women. And that was great. And I was like, okay, I didn't really know if anyone would show up. I didn't really know if anyone would like book club. I didn't even know if I would like book club. Come a month or 2 down the road, there was a possibility that I decided like, oh, this isn't right for me. Now, obviously, that I didn't really think that was going to happen with book club, to be honest, but I genuinely didn't think that it would last as long as it has. It's been 3 years, and we've had multiple women have babies. We've had multiple women get married. We've had multiple women change jobs, change houses. And it's just grown and grown and grown. And we're now 20 women strong. And not everybody comes to every single month of the book club that we meet. But it's one thing where if I would have just sat there for longer, because I had already been sitting there for months thinking like, I really wish I had a book club. I really wish I had a book club. And then finally I was like, well, I guess I need to start one because I'm not being invited to one. So if I had sat there for longer, if I was still here 3 years later thinking, I think I would really like a book club. I think I would really like a book club. I'm so much happier to have tried it and found that actually it is awesome and I love it and I feel really aligned in it. And I think that there's just such a good community of women in it. I'd rather be here than never having tried it, never stepping out of my comfort zone 3.5 years ago, or however long. It was a little less than 3.5 years ago. I would rather be here than still be in that place. It's always better to try something than to stay stuck, in my opinion. So that's one thing, another thing that I've learned in choosing to do the podcast. The third thing that I've learned is that repetition, and I knew this already because of I talked about my workout plans, but especially of like building my morning routine. I knew this, that repetition is the key to mastery. So what I'm saying here is that, again, like I said this at the beginning, but when you're a beginner, things feel so forced. They feel so hard. The first time I decided I'm going to wake up 30 minutes earlier and start doing a 25-minute workout in the mornings, it felt so hard. But repetition is what made me a master of my morning routine. And now I have an ungodly long morning routine. It's so silly. I have like a 2.5 to 3 hour morning routine most days. And it's something that I love. It's actually something that I adore. But if you would have asked me 7-8 years ago, before, when I was waking up 20 minutes before I had to leave and get out the door to go to work, if I would have a 2.5 to 3 hour morning routine, I'd say, oh my God, no, I could never do that. But through repetition and forming that habit, because repetition forms habits, the things we do repeatedly are what we become. That's what our life becomes. And so through repetition and that habit forming, I now have that long ass morning routine. And it's been the same way with podcasting. So I remember, I always joke with my sister, when we decided to do the podcast the very first day that we recorded, it was light out when we started recording. And slowly but surely, like the light went down in the window. Like at some point we were sitting in this room and it was completely dark in here because the sun had gone down while we were not recording, but while we were editing. And we were having the most trouble with like the editing software that we were using. We had obviously never done this before. We were beginners and it took forever. Like I kid you not when I say the first episode that we ever released probably took us 8 hours total, like maybe longer, honestly. But my point is that once you've done it over and over and over and over, it becomes like second nature. I remember at some point my sister told me like, yeah, now I just edit the podcast episode on like 2 times speed. I barely pay attention to it. I just like cut here and there. And then once I'm done with it, I like make it back to original speed and export it. And I don't necessarily do that myself just because it worries me doing it in 2 times speed. I'm like, it gets my heart racing. But I do feel like now when I'm editing the episode, like it is just kind of rote, right? Like it's just muscle memory. It builds that muscle memory. When you do something over and over and over again, you know how to do it the next time. So it makes it easier. So apply that to anything that you are trying to do. Are you trying to write a book? Okay, repetition is necessary. You need to repeat writing for 30 minutes every single day. Or like I am doing this yoga certification class. And I know that if I ever fully become certified, I hope that I do. If I'm a yoga instructor, the first time that I do a yoga class, it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to be a beginner. I'm going to mess things up. I'm probably going to do one side and miss the other side or whatever. Like there are things that I will do wrong the first time because it's the first time. But once you've done it 1,000 times, like if you've ever gone to a yoga class and you've had a seasoned yoga instructor, you know that they seem like they've been doing this forever. They say inhale here and exhale here all at the right times. You don't even know, like all of their transitions are seamless. They just seem like they've been doing it forever and it's so easy for them. So repetition is the key to mastery. So whatever it is that you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to become better at, do it repeatedly. Like focus on it repeatedly. Build it into your day. Build it into a genuinely every day. Show me 20 minutes of your day that you're spending on that thing repeatedly every day. And that is how I know that you're going to eventually become a master of it. It's the same thing with my sourdough starter. I know I talk about my sourdough too much on here, but I know the recipe for a regular plain sourdough loaf like the back of my hand because I've done it a bunch of times now. I know that you need 500 grams of bread flour, 100 grams of sourdough starter, and 340 grams of water, 5 grams of salt. I know how long you stir it. I know how long you go between stretch and folds. I know how long to bulk ferment it. I know when it looks good. I know how long to overnight ferment it in the fridge. Like it's just muscle memory at this point. So repetition is the key to mastery. The last thing that I have learned and that you probably will agree with me on is that everybody has an opinion, right? I've talked about this before. I talked about it on my Justin Bieber episode, which was actually one of my more recent episodes that I really enjoyed listening to. So even though this is the last episode, you should go back and listen to that episode because I had so much fun with it. But everybody is going to have an opinion and they're going to share it. And that's okay. Like I actually ask for people's opinions whenever I love talking to people about this kind of stuff, about personal growth, about what they're learning. That's why I always feel like when I come on here, I'm like chatting with a girlfriend because these are the kinds of things that I enjoy talking about over a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or anything that we're just enjoying together. And so everyone will have an opinion. They will share it, whether you ask for it or not. I do tend to ask for opinions, but you get to choose which people you listen to or you take their opinions, I guess. So I always think back to the first time I realized that this was the case when I first got engaged, which it's funny thinking about this now because I didn't plan to use this example, but we just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. And when we first got engaged, we decided on like a 4-month engagement, which felt crazy, but I was like, I just want to be married. And we were also very young. So I don't know. We were just in a rush to get married. People ask me why now. And I'm like, I don't know. We had already been together 5 years and it just felt like I knew I was going to marry him. So why not now? Anyway, at the time, like everybody and their moms, everybody and my mom, well, I cared about my mom's opinion, but everybody and their moms had an opinion about the wedding. They were like suggesting things, and we had a very small budget. We were both in college still. So people would say things, and sometimes I would just let it go in one year and let it go out the other. Instead of taking it personally, whenever they're like, yeah, you should get like, someone literally told me, you should get a string quartet for the ceremony. And I was like, yeah, with what money? Are you going to pay the string quartet? Didn't think so. So anyway, I just, instead of taking those things personally or getting annoyed at that person, I would just kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. Whereas with someone like my sister or my mom at the time, or my fiance, my soon to be husband, if they had a strong opinion about something, I was more likely to be like, okay, I kind of value their opinion. What should I listen to? And so if you're someone like me who can tend to be a people pleaser, or can tend to like, oh, everybody's opinion is stressing me out and overwhelming me and making me feel like I can't choose right, that is how I am sometimes. I have learned with the podcast, again, I've relearned again with the podcast, that everybody will have an opinion. You kind of have to decide ahead of time. For instance, if you're in a relationship and maybe it's a dating relationship, or I don't know, but you're in a relationship, people often have opinions on your relationship, but you have to decide, whose opinions do you care about? Do you care about your friend from high school who you only really talk to anymore because you're a friend of a friend of a friend and their cousin is kind of loosely related and blah, blah, blah. Like when they say something about your relationship, are you going to take it as seriously as when your sister says something about your relationship? No, probably not. Or when you're talking about your career and, oh, I don't know if I should leave this job, or I don't know about this. I remember whenever I was job searching, it's totally okay. If you're listening to this and you gave me advice, I don't mind that at all. But when I was job searching, everybody has an opinion. And that's why some people are more private. My husband is very private. When he's looking for a job, he's much more private, doesn't really talk to anybody about it. And I don't know his reasons, but I could imagine one reason might be because everybody's like, oh, you should really try this. You should really try this. And there's someone who, one, has never experienced you professionally. A lot of people in your life have not experienced you professionally. Two, they probably don't actually know what motivates you, what makes you passionate. There's very few people in your life that are as invested about your career as you are. Actually nobody in your life. You're the most invested person in your career. And then the next closest thing is probably your spouse, your parents, your siblings, if you have them, maybe a really close friend. So you get to decide ahead of time when you're going through this crisis with your career, or crisis with your podcast, or crisis with your relationship, or whatever. You get to decide not only who to tell, but also who to listen to. And some people are going to give you advice, unsolicited advice, and you get to decide if that goes in one ear and out the other. And often it does. I'm not going to lie. I love hearing people out, but sometimes if someone gives me advice that I'm like, yeah, that just doesn't stick with me, it's just in one ear, out the other. And that's okay. We are all different. Different things light us up. Different things make us excited. And we all have different opinions about different things. I could probably say something to you and be like, yeah, you should do this. And you'd be like, in one ear, out the other, So sometimes it's good to listen to people's advice, but really, really think, especially with the different categories of your life, like I was saying, like career, relationship, hobbies, side hustle, physical health. It could be anything, like relationship with your family, anything like that. Honestly, I think it is so helpful and beneficial to know the people ahead of time, because we just get into conversations with people, right? Like it's organic, but knowing the people ahead of time that you trust their opinion on that particular subject is really beneficial, and I think it can really help you. So I hope that this last episode was really helpful for you. I hope that you've enjoyed this journey. I really have enjoyed this journey. It's been over 2 years. We started the podcast in May of 2024, and at the time, it was a totally different podcast. And then I've been doing it solo since last September because my sister went on like quote unquote podcast maternity leave, and then psych, she never came back. I'm just joking. I'm not upset or anything at all about that. But if you've been listening along, I really value your support and I really appreciate you. And obviously, you can reach out to me and we can stay connected. If you've been listening to this and we don't know each other personally, please feel free to like message me on Instagram, Morgan Jane Welch on Instagram and or Facebook, and we can connect there as well. But I really, really appreciate your support and I love you. Thank you.